Chris Phillips is live now into the weekend with Flashback Friday on the UK's #1 station, secondcityradio.net, and on the Second City Radio app for Android and iOS.
Yes, you've heard this, of course. Normally Thursday nights at 9 o'clock, of course, upward step Mr. George Cole and my very special guest. I'm going to say I'm excited. No, I'm more than excited. I'm at an orgasmic stage for the bloke. That ain't too bad. 27 minutes to 10 o'clock, we welcome Mr. Gary Webster. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I am very well. Listen, first of all, I don't say this very often, but thank you so much indeed for agreeing to come on this show tonight and talk to me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Chris. It's a pleasure. I've been following you on Twitter, etc., and when you kindly asked if I was around, it's no problem. It's a real pleasure for me to come on, and thanks very much for asking me.
Well, see, because of our demographic here, because the kind of audience base that we've got, you fit absolutely smashing in the middle of it all, Gary, because everybody, and I know everybody I've spoken to since we knew you kind of hooked up and we knew you were coming on the show, have been quite excited about this because you were in one of the biggest TV series of the decade. In fact, it's still being shown now, but we're going to come back to that in a minute. First of all, I know, a little bird tells me that your first acting role, which I can't place you, which I'm going to get you to, you was in EastEnders playing Graham Clark back in 1987. What was your character back in EastEnders before you took Minder? What was that all about?
Well, in actual fact, Chris, that wasn't my first role.
Okay.
That was actually my first role was in the first ever Inspector Morse.
Really?
In fact, I was in the first ever scene with John Saw as a dodgy car paint sprayer. Me and a guy were doing some dodgy business, and Morse arrested me, handcuffed me to the iconic Jaguar, drove off, and the Jag got hit, and so that was my first ever role. And then from then, I got a few others, but then I went into EastEnders, and there was, back in the day in '87, there were two gay characters called Barry and Colin.
Yes,
and played by Gary Howells, I think it was, and the fantastic Michael Cashman, who's a fantastic advocate of LGBT rights, etc., etc. MP and in Lords, I think, and I played Barry's brother, Graham Clark, who everyone assumed might be kind of put off the fact that he finds out his brother was gay, but he wasn't. He was very supportive, and in fact, he was one of the first guys to take on Dirty Den and to put the fear of God in the Dirty Den. So I was quite, it was quite a good character.
So you're telling me then you were a tough nut in it? Again,
yes, I was. It was. There was a few of us that was somebody, so I was always referred to as Barry's brother. There was Carmel's boyfriend, there was Mary's boyfriend, or Carmel's brother, Mary's boyfriend. So no one ever knew our character names, but we were associated with people in the square. So it was a lot of fun at that time with Nick Berry and all the kind of the classic iconic actors and characters there. So it was a great time to be there.
Well, some of the... I mean, we talk about your time on EastEnders and this Inspector Morse before. I asked this question to lots of people that come on my show. What made you decide initially to become an actor? You must have woken up one morning and thought, I don't want to go and do a manual job. I don't want to work as an electric fitter or a gas fitter. I want to be an actor. Is this something you're kind of born with, or is it something you'd watched a lot of TV and thought, I could really get into this?
No, not really. I certainly wasn't a child actor. I wasn't sort of too interested. I mean, I remember I went to a comprehensive outside of East London in Essex, and drama was something we bunked off, up till third and fourth year. And then for some reason, I was quite boisterous and energetic, and my French teacher said, listen, they're looking for the lead in the school play, which was the musical life story of Al Capone, if you can imagine such a subject and such a musical as actually exists. So she said, why don't you channel your energies into that? So, I was in the fifth year, which is like the hierarchy of the school at the time, and I thought, well, if I could do it now, I probably can do it any time. And after that first night, that went okay. I didn't forget my lines. the applause or whatever. I always remember that was a seminal moment for me. That was I think Olivier, refers to it as being bitten by the bug. And from then, it was kind of like a very fast-track process for me. I applied for audition for the National Youth Theatre at 16. I was 16 then, and got into National Youth Theatre during the summer. I then knew exactly what I wanted to do, so then I applied for drama school when I was 18, got into Lambda, did 3 years there, and then you're kind of in the big wide world. But I think I was very fortunate, because I think I would have been, up until that point, I was treading water. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I loved sport. I loved the great orators like Kennedy and Martin Luther King, etc. But that gave me a real purpose. That gave me a direction, which I think is I look back now, I think I was very lucky, because I think having got sons of my own, it's sometimes hard to find at that age, So
well, I'm not definitely not going to try and embarrass you here, but I've got to say something. You were also born with the looks. You were a very, very, very good-looking, easy on the eye type of fella. So I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm kind of got to use my man's side to kind of describe that Gary Webster, of course, is a very, very good-looking man. You must have thought, I've seen some actors, and I'm here to tell you, you were one of the guys that definitely would get a lot of roles. Did you find that your looks also helped in getting roles?
Well, I honestly, to be honest, there are far, far better. I'm flattered, but I'm also a realist. I think there are far, far better looking guys than I in the business, etc. But I think what I probably had was, I've always had the mantra is that, I'm no Olivier, I'm no, Brad Pitt or whatever, but whatever I do, I try to do the best of my ability. And I think also if you have a passion and you have an enthusiasm, I sometimes refer to myself as, which Desmond Tutu once described himself at the height of the apartheid regime, that he was a prisoner of optimism, and that's how I approach every day. I can't help but attack it and think this is going to be a good day. Now, sometimes I think, I think I was once described as a snaggle-toothed, lazy-eyed Londoner or something, which I think is closer to the mark. But I think if you couple that with a passion for what you're doing, and enthusiasm and optimism, I think then, you might get some breaks, and that's all it is. If you're lucky enough to get the breaks, there are far better actors than me out there, far better actors than me at drama school. But sometimes you've got to risk a little bit, and if you get the break early doors, it was also very important when you came out of drama school to get some TV. So we because then you kind of, if you go too many months or a year or two without having TV on your CV, people begin to question why. So immediately, a friend of mine and I came out of drama school called Phil Middlemas.
Oh, yeah. Des Barnes. Yeah.
Well, we immediately attached to our CVs, when we'd done a piece of theatre, and then we put that we'd been in the professionals and the bill. Now, based on the reasoning that if the casting director said, well, what was you in the bill? We would say, remember there was that bunch of kids and all that. So we basically lied, because we thought no one's going to trawl through all the episodes of the bill, all the professionals, looking for, Steve, boy number 3. And so, but then they go, oh, you've done TV. And then we span it from there onwards. So I would advise any drama student coming out, find a TV series there's plenty of episodes, and just say you've done it.
Well, I've got to say this is what people don't understand about this station. Gary's only been on the show for about 8 minutes. Now, I've had an email come through on my screen from Marion. Now, Marion...
Do I owe money?
No, you don't. Marion... No, you'll like this. Marion is listening in New York right now. She's listening right now. Now, I can't corroborate this, but I will go with what you say, Marion. She used to be a runner on your series, Minder, when you were in it.
Right.
That's all I know. She's just saying, hi, Gary.
Oh, okay, great, lovely. Marion, that's the name, yes, that's familiar, definitely. Well, I hope she's well, and I hope she's enjoying success in New York. Well, it's a fantastic place to be. So, I hope that's very kind, because she's got a good memory. So, I hope I was polite, and because those days were kind of a bit crazy, I didn't sort of hold back in partying in those days. So, I hope I was always courteous.
Well, I think that's absolutely amazing that somebody's dropped in 10 minutes of this interview to say that they used to be a runner for you on your Minder. And talking of Minder, so all these things going on, of course, we know about Des Barnes, of course, from Coronation Street. Somebody else, of course, and they have. I'm just going to throw this in. On ITV3 now, they have started, I don't know why they're doing it, but they have started to repeat classic Coronation Street on an afternoon.
Oh,
did you know
okay,
this?
yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. And of course, so exactly what Gary's talking about, no doubt you will come across Des Barnes. Those that don't know who he is, of course, you will. But moving forward, I've got to say to you, you know, I'm not going to mention... I'm going to kind of gloss over the first part of Minder. I'm going to gloss over that a little bit because it's about you tonight, and rightly so. Obviously, you know, somebody else who took a lead role in Minder, working along George Cole, of course, because George Cole, to me, is an absolute legend, of course, God rest his soul. From your point of view, can you tell us, first of all, how did you get the Minder gig? And in your head, how did you kind of try and bring a difference to the programme that what was there before? Put your own stamp on it, is what I mean.
Yeah, well, I always maintain that I believe that the process of basically what happened was Dennis Waterman didn't want to do another series because he felt that the series was focusing more on Arthur Daly than it was on Terry McCann. Thought it has run its course. Let it be known that he didn't want to do another series, and so George obviously thought, well, that would be the end of the series. The producers came back to him and said, what about if we got you a new Minder? So he said, well, yes, the writing's good and all that, I'll go with it, because it was so iconic. I mean, my family and I used to watch it in 79 and 80, and so what happened was they went on a kind of trek then to find, fulfill the new Minder role. I think a woman being in the role was talked about, this and that, variations of the whole different thing. And I think they had sort of gone through many combinations, and other people were in the frame to do it, but then they sort of did a general casting. So I went in, and I always maintain quite late because I'm a W of a Webster. So I got on immediately well with the producer, and et cetera, and then I had about 2 other interviews following that, and then I had a screen test with George Cole, in which we had to do 2 scenes. And you know, I remember, that was extremely nerve-wracking. And in the first thing we did, I was a bag of nerves, really. The enormity of the possibility of getting such a great role, creating this new character. I'd read the script. The scripts are fantastic. And the first scene didn't go too well. And then we had, I sort of relaxed a bit. And I always remember turning away, and they said, okay, we'll change the set and we'll go for a second scene. And I always kind of had this imagery of... a handful of sand and it just slipping through my fingers. And I thought, well, now is the time to come to the plate if you're ever going to get it. So I relaxed, and the next scene we did, we began to gel, and something happened, something magical happened. And I thought, after that, I think I'm in with a chance. And then they announced it, and then sort of all hell broke loose. I remember my mum and dad, they were besieged with reporters back in that day. It was incredible. My mum got a migraine, and they went up and bought their first answering machine or something because they were getting so many phone calls from people. And then, basically, me and George, we worked on the first 3 episodes, and we got on well. And then we started to share. He had a huge Winnebago, and we started to share that, and we could go through the lines. And then I settled in after 3 or 4. But really, my look, I can only do what I'm given to read, so I can build the character, I can work on the character, but it's the quality of the writing. And David Yallop, who was one of the original writers and then went off and wrote fantastic books about God's banker, the Pope, conspiracies and all that, he wrote my first episode and came up with that key thing of making it family. Arthur Daly's favourite film is The Godfather, and he based it around that kind of thing. And when you've got writing of such quality, then really I just have to do my job, turn up and hit my marks, Well, kind of, when they started to broadcast this on the TV, were you kind of bought in for one series? Did you know it was going to be longer than one? I mean, what were you told? No, I think basically I had one series, and then I was optioned to do a second. So that's always a kind of a fail-safe. That if it, they've got you for the second, but if it does disastrously well, you just do the one. But fortunately, after the first episode, the consensus, the ratings were still in the 13, 14 millions, and the consensus was it was really good. And I always remember Jimmy Greaves was doing a ITV telly column at the time, being a pundit, and he gave me the thumbs up. He said the boy's done well and all of that. And so many people said, I was reading Greavesy in the Sun newspaper, and he gave you a thumbs up. Yeah. And immediately, almost overnight, I would then go out and get recognised. Because I guess when you look back at those sort of ratings of 14 million, it's a lot of people, So, and fortunately, the writing was so strong, and George was just a dream to work with. I mean, the master of comic timing. I mean, I think him and David Jason have been probably and Ronnie Barker have been our three greatest comic actors, that we've had in the last 30, 40 years. So, everything kind of, the planets were in line to make it work. So, and as I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it, if you can't enjoy a job like that, what can you enjoy?
Okay, so, Gary, the next question is, obviously, everything's got a shelf life. Yeah. Obviously, there have been discussions about Minder coming to an end as kind of a whole job lot coming to a close. Do you think it was the right time to end it, or could you have seen the character maybe carrying on, or maybe a spin-off for yourself? I mean, what do you think?
I can't comment on that because there is a story to that, but I'm not prepared to comment on it.
Okay, so let's kind of move a little bit away from keeping in the realms.
Okay.
So obviously, Minder comes to an end, and that's over. There's other things I want to talk to you about in a minute, and of course we've got some emails. Before then, they bought Minder back with Shane Ritchie.
Yeah.
Now, surely you've got an opinion on this.
Yeah, listen, I've met Shane quite a few times. I like him as a person, as an actor, what he did with EastEnders. I also know the executive producer of that show very, very well, because I worked with him on a show I did called Family Affairs.
Yeah.
I think it was a mistake. I think it was too similar. The characters were basically my character in there, and I think probably Shane had always looked upon George and portrayal of Arthur Daly, and everyone knows an Arthur Daly in their family. That was the beauty of it, across every race, creed and colour. Yeah. Everyone's got an Arthur Daly in their family. Everyone's got somebody they can get a cheap TV off or a pair of trousers, So I just feel, what I always felt is that by this time, the Primarks and all this, so the actual ability gets cheap goods and all that, it was actually drifting out of the psyche of the nation. And I just feel that, I don't know. It didn't work. Maybe if they'd had me back, I don't know. I'm not being funny.
Well, listen, I can be vocal on this station. A, because I own it, and B, I don't care, and C, I can't be sacked. But a couple of things here. Minder should have been left alone, because it's kind of when you start kind of branching out and thinking, well, that was great, let's bring it back, I think it's wrong. They're now talking to bring in Wurzel Gummidge back. I think that's completely wrong. It's kind of sacrilege to be taking these programmes, because for me, Wurzel Gummidge will always be John Pertwee, and I don't think it should be messed with. Do you remember a film called The Goonies?
Yeah, I know, they're remaking that, aren't they?
Not good. And like you said, and I'm a Shane Ritchie fan, so I'm not going to put him down. I think bringing Minder back in that context was completely wrong, and it kind of, in my eyes, and I can say this because I'm saying it, it disrespected the originals.
Well, I mean, everything. I mean, this, I know what you're saying because you're a fan of the show and all that. Yeah. I mean, whether it disrespected it, I'm not quite sure, because, when you're offered jobs and you're going to take them because you want to put your mark on it. I just felt, where I think they've just got it slightly wrong on that, and, we can just breeze on after this, is that if you can have a character who was the nephew of Arthur Daly, which I think Shane's character was, I mean, it wasn't that long a distance between me doing it. So people, I mean, that's why I do get recognised. Well, so why wouldn't you have why wouldn't you have called him Ray? Because that's what was established in the whole series. And why wouldn't you have probably cast me? But the fact is, I don't think I would have done it, because I don't think it would have been right to do it again, me personally.
Yeah.
So even if they had offered it to me, I would have said, I don't think it works in an environment 10 years on, because Minder was a bit like Fools and Horses when they brought that back. I thought when they walked off into the sunset, having sold the watch, that was the time, because it was of its time. Yeah. And they'd achieved everything they needed to do. Losing the money and coming back, Minder coming back, best left to the great memories we have of it,
But unfortunately, like with Fools and Horses and like with Minder, it's public pressure. So I know kind of...
I'm not so sure.
No?
I'm not so sure people desperately wanted things back. I think sometimes producers get in there and they think, I know, I can make this for the time. And it's very difficult because almost they're born out of the time. I remember with Minder, and the same with Fools and Horses. The first series didn't go down well. And it was only because they used the repeating of, certainly on Minder, it was shown at 10:30 on a Tuesday, that people then, a different kind of demographic got into it and allowed them to make the second series, and same with Fools and Horses. So these things, but when you're trying to say we're going back to the old days, I don't necessarily think it always works. The greatest shows are kind of organic and they just happen, and it's like we watch a thing called Stranger Things with our kids, and it's a kind of organic thing. It's just catching fire. Now, if you set out to do something like that, you publicise it as the new Stranger Things, it's very difficult to do that. So I think sometimes, they do have a shelf life. They have a life of their own, and sometimes once that life is done, it's, the running gag we used to have is, will you be coming back to do a special? And of course we won't. And of course, since George's death, of course I won't. But I think and he would never have done a special, because he felt it had run its course.
Yeah, but in fairness, just to kind of interject at this point, why couldn't we, just in the realms of possibility, as Ray Daly, of course, I think it would be absolutely fantastic. If you've just mentioned Davy Jason there, Open All Hours, and of course he worked with the fabulous Ronnie Barker.
Yeah.
Then he came back for a new rerun and is recording another series now, taken over the shop. You can see Ronnie Barker in the shots there. It could still be feasible to have some kind of, even today, you back on camera, looking at what Ray Daly's done since Arthur's gone, what you're doing. So would you be up for something like that in the future?
Yeah, I probably would. If the writing was good, of course, because I think you're sticking to the original characters there, definitely. But again, as George always, and I learned a lot of George in the 3 or 4 years I was there, then it becomes down to the writing, the script, because if you're going to do so, although now I think, you could do anything, people just do anything to get on TV, but for me, it'd have to be, it would have to be the right concept and the writing to be of a standard that you go, okay, we're not going to embarrass ourselves here. We're not just trading off the back of. There's some validity in what we're trying to do here. But sure, listen, I've learned as an older actor now, you do whatever you can, and if they offered me that, I'm taking it.
Well, at the end of the day, like I'm saying, I'm not just saying this because you're on the phone, but a lot of people listening into this show now around the world would
still listening, are they? Never switched over.
Well, they'll agree with me, because at the end of the day, you're one of the original members of the cast, and I think it would be nice to maybe, not calling it Minder, but maybe calling it Daily.
Yeah, in the end, because obviously, I watched it. Dennis and George did the majority of the episodes. But when I count up, I did over a third, so that was quite an integral part of the show, which is I'm very proud of that. I did that many on such an iconic show.
Well, Jack in Hertfordshire says you smashed it when you took over the role. He's a Dennis Waterman fan. Didn't know how he would feel about somebody else coming in and taking that lead. However, he thinks you did thoroughly well, and actually by you coming in and casting the role correctly, they were able to sustain more series because you were picked in the role, where it could have gone disastrously wrong, and they could have picked a character that just was unbelievable in the series. What do you think of that?
I think that's very kind. Obviously, that's very nice to hear, and it's very kind words. I think, again, where I always go back to, I think the writing had such a big part to do with that, and the way that they made it. I always thought that Terry and Arthur were almost like husband and wife at times. They're always bickering with each other, whereas Ray and Arthur were more like father and son.
Yes.
Which I thought was a very clever aspect to make of it. Excuse me. So, and I think that did give Arthur's character, which, as we, you sit back and you watch him go, he was the dynamic character of the whole towards the end of Dennis's series with him, and obviously during mine, it gave him a different dynamic. So he had to do. I always remember one scene we did, and this was early 90s. So, and there was a scene when we was in a nightclub, and we were rehearsing, and I had a scene. I had to say to him, "Oh, relax, Arthur." He was out of his comfort zone anyway because the music was loud, there was flashing lights. I said, "Relax." I had to say, "Relax, Arthur." Well, I changed that when we did rehearsal. I think we even maybe done a take, and I slipped in. I said, "Oh, chill out, Arthur," which was a term we used in the site back in the day. And he answered normally to it, where he was like, would have answered to "relax, Arthur." Then we stopped and we were going to go again. He said, "What do you say to me then?" So I said, "Chill out." He said, "What does that mean?" I said, "It means relax, but it's not what we're saying on the street." He went, "Great. Always tell me that. Always tell me that." So when we did it again, I said to him, "Chill out, Arthur." He went, "What do you mean? I'm not even cold. I'm not even cold, Ray. I'm just a little bit." And he slipped it in, so then we could work. So then he was finding out new stuff about. So I was bringing in street words all the time, and all I had to do was tell him what I was going to say, and then he would react as Arthur would. So I did think it brought new life and a new direction for Arthur as well. You know, that he was a little bit softer with Ray in respect that he was family, and that made it work. And that's, as I say again, down to the writers, you know.
How do you feel when you see repeats of these still being bunged out across ITV4, and a new audience, of course, that there are a new audience watching these episodes back from the beginning of the 90s? How does it make you feel to see that they're being rerun again?
I'm going to quote Morgan Freeman now from The Shawshank Redemption, say, "I look at that young man and I want to tell him, stop being a fool, stop being..." I look at a young kid on the screen and some of it I've completely forgotten. So I think, you know, sometimes I think they still hold up. And I think what with all the Brexit and the Europe stuff and, you know, maybe it was ahead of its time, but I still think some of the performances from George is, you know, I just think they're absolutely terrific, and they hold today. I
think in the current form, of course, with Brexit, don't get me started, I think Uncle Arthur would have a field day right now.
Oh, I mean, the whole circumstance around it, you know, he'd be itching to get what would be good for him. But, you know, I watched the Dennis ones as well. They were made in the late 70s, 79, early 80s. And, you know, subject matter, voting, you know, he runs as an MP in one or two of them and this and that. They really do, because you know what? Good writing will hold up in any era.
I'll tell you what I thought was fabulous about your appearance in mine, Dan. I'll tell you what, one of the main things that stuck out for me. They literally threw everything behind you, including removing, and I didn't want to say his name tonight, Dennis's theme tune from the series.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of, and I like that the fact that the theme tune was the same, but there was no Dennis sing-over, and it was completely, no disrespect to Dennis, it was completely dismantling him out of the show to focus on Ray Daly, the new addition to this team.
Well, yeah, I think that was essential, because then they made it very clear that there was never going to be two Minders in the same show. It was a definite cut, and I think the opening scene was Arthur at Terry's flat, and he'd left a note saying he'd gone to Australia. But I think that was something, obviously, definitely, that was the producers were very, very clear about. That if it was going to work, they had to do it completely, so that this was a completely new sort of show. Obviously, Dave, the Winchester, Arthur, of course, but you know, there would be no sort of looking back. It had to look forward. I always equate it to, remember the series Cheers?
Yes.
And Ted Danson, and he, you know, and then Shelley Long left, and
Kirstie Alley.
Kirstie Alley took over. Now, at that time, you thought Diane can never be replaced, even the similarity. But that's what they did. A completely different character, a completely different dynamic, but the same premise and the same sort of relationship. And that's why I always equated it as that, you know, I wasn't Terry McCann. Terry McCann, I mean, in actual fact, you could have had Terry McCann, Ray Daly and Arthur all in the same episode. You know, because they were very different characters. Two could, you know, mind him, and one would always be hiding behind the couch. And the same with Cheers, and that's what I was looking at. It was never that I was going in as Terry McCann too. And I say that once again, I hark back. That takes good writing, because so they separate the two characters, but you feel that you're watching the same show, you love all the stuff about it that you always did.
I mean, the main thing is if you look at other shows, we won't mention them now, but if you look at other shows where the cast have changed, soap operas, that happens quite regular because they kind of have to keep up. It's like, you know, watching your own family when you watch Coronation Street. So you know, characters are going to change. But in other cases, of course, I've found that when they remove certain characters, the show can bomb. It can be you know, cancelled and whatever. Yeah. What you actually did when you came in and took over from Dennis, and you come on yourself. You did something that very, very few actors and actresses have been able to do. You kept the audience with you. It could have, with the wrong casting, been an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of people have said this to me over the years, and I mean, even Dennis said, you know, I'm not sure he's going to handle the pressure or that. And I'm absolutely genuine when I say I just was happy to have got such a plum role in such a show, to be working with such a guy. I'm not that sort of pressurised guy. And I do always work from the mantra, you know, pressure is when you've worked an 18-hour day in A&E and you're getting back and you're having to get some sleep to get back in again. You know, pressure is having 3 kids and you're getting in the lift and you've got a bag full of shopping and the lift's not working, you've got to get the top floor, you know, 18 floors up. These are all pressures. Pressures when you've got to go to a food bank. So as actors, we're very much an integral part of society because the doctor, the nurse, the fire officer, the teacher like to relax and go back and see us, you know, so we're there for that. But that's pressure. I mean, you know, when you see what teachers do for the little pay they get, but when they go home, they go through all the lesson the next day and all that, and they're under pressure and they're changing face to tear. All that's pressure. I never felt that as an actor because what we do, you know, we're very lucky to do, and that's the other side of it. Pressure is when somebody that you love is very ill. That's pressure, not what I did. So I never felt it, and I'm hopefully, and I believe that came across, that I slotted in because I felt I really did feel under no pressure. And if it had bombed, the best I was going to get was that I'd worked with George Cole for 6 months of my life.
Well,
what a result.
You're talking about pressure. I'm under pressure tonight because I've got one of my heroes on this show. I'm talking to Ray Daly. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? Ray Daly. 4 minutes past 10 o'clock, Second City Radio. We're talking to the wonderful Gary Webster. We've spoken about Minder. Let's talk a little bit about other people, because you've done so many things to talk about. You've been in Hollyoaks. You had a main role in Crossroads, and then, of course, you went in as Gary Costello in Family Affairs. How did that come up? Because Family Affairs, I watched a few of those, completely different to what you'd done before. Why did you take the role, and was it okay playing playing that kind of role?
Money. It's always down to money. There's no art. I think Peter Hall once said to Michael Caine, Michael, why don't you come to work at the National? Do Macbeth, do Hamlet, do a restoration comedy. You know, do something for your art. And he said, you know what, Peter? In my house, I've got a Picasso, a Monet, and a, you know, whatever. He said, now that's what I call art. The role came up, and I'm not averse to soaps. I think soaps are fantastic. And I was working opposite Kasia Pelka, who I'd known from drama school. And there was a new dynamic to the show, you know, Channel 5, and I knew that the character was going to cover a whole gamut of stuff. And as I say, it was great regular work, but at the same time, they worked as hard because the Costello family kind of caught fire, and it resulted in the end, the first year we was in, Kasia got nominated for Best Actress, which is the first soap award that they ever got nominated for. And then the following year, Kasia won Best Actress in the soap awards, and we won Best Storyline. So I've got this wonderful 2005 soap award on my shelf, and of course, as in television and as in show business, 6 weeks later they axed the show. But that's, you know, that's what you have to deal with.
There seems to be a theme of 6 months coming here all the time. I've got to say to you, I have got one part of you that I'm very disappointed about. Mm-hmm. Very disappointed, Gary.
Go on.
You played a drugs baron.
Oh, in the bill.
What were you doing getting involved with drugs?
Oh, I felt that I was at home with that was the man I felt most at home with. It really was. Don't quote me on that. I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
Go on then. I'll have an ounce. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where you went? Colombia? I often go to Colombia. Yeah, no problem.
He's not being. He's joking, by the way, guys. All right.
Yeah, I am joking. You know, this is a nice, easy interview, and I'm just slightly taking it.
But I'll tell you, to even that, of course, they always say that the best actors and actresses will always appear in the bill somewhere. And how did it feel to be invited to come onto the bill to play that role?
Well, I've done about 2 other roles in the bill up until that point.
Yeah.
But no, that was good because that was like a long stretch. That was about over 10 months. And, it was like, you're playing out Mr. Gangster, which I make the joke. I play either coppers or gangsters or, villains in a way, and I just changed my suit.
For 6 months. For 6 months.
Yeah, I don't even change my suit now. I just change my shirt. One's an off-duty copper and one's a drugs baron. It's just a different coloured shirt. Same character, same actor, same face.
But then, of course, I really thought you cracked it because I saw you pop up in EastEnders as Neville Peacock.
Yeah, I know. What happened to Neville? I like Neville.
What happened?
Well, they said I was going to go in, and they said, there's a good chance he'll come back, and he never came back. He was a swinger.
Oh.
He enjoyed the party life.
But
he was in the hot tub with Danny Dyer, and then bang, they just axed him as well, or they just got rid.
I don't agree. I think Neville Peacock will return because we
well, I was hoping he might shake him up a little bit there, But,
listen, if anybody...
for me to go on a strict training programme after that, because I saw a picture of me in the Daily Mail or something, throwing a slipper I was throwing it at Danny Dyer down as they drove off. I realised then that I didn't want to be being pushed back into the ocean by the kids on the beach next time I go down to Cornwall. So,
if anybody is listening now from EastEnders, what's going on? We need Neville Peacock back in. Come on, what's going on? Stop dicking around. Let's get it sorted, please.
That's very kind. I'm not sure this will have any influence because I think Neville might have run his course. But there you go.
Right, Sally Ann Davis in Bristol listening to the show tonight. If you could have maybe done one more episode that you could have written and directed yourself, including George Cole, what would you have done? I kind of like that. So if they said, well, you've got a free episode, you write it and direct it yourself, what would you have liked to have done with the character that wasn't done in Minder?
Oh, well, I think there's only one thing you'd have to have done, and it would have been you'd have had to have revealed what her indoors looks like.
Yes. So would you have done that if you'd have been the director and writer? You'd have finally
I think
revealed...
you'd have had to have a go at it. I mean, she's one of the most iconic characters never seen. She's up there with Mrs. Columbo, who you also never see.
No, you never see Mrs. Columbo ever, and that's probably the beauty of it. And those people out there like me, her indoors, would have an image of what her indoors look
everyone's got their own image, and that's the beauty of it.
It's like
I think it was
it reminds me of meeting somebody on Tinder. You see their profile picture, but when you turn up, by God, is it a whole different story?
Well, it could have been Catfish. Who knows?
I don't watch Catfish, Gary. I don't watch Catfish.
Oh, it's riveting. We always watch it.
So moving forward, my friend.
Yeah.
I've got to say on the show, and I've made this kind of in my mind. There's always things with people, of course, and through Gary's life, he's had a few personal issues. But on this show, we don't talk about health. We don't talk because it's a happy show. And I think personally, bringing stuff up like that it's negative. It's not required.
I know, and I've got to say, I really don't mind because the fact is, I find it a positive because if people have suffered the same thing, then maybe sometimes it's always good to hear somebody else's approach who they might have watched on TV or admired, possibly, who knows, and to see that, that the things that can happen, like a bankruptcy,
yes,
like a heart attack,
yes,
that are survivable, are life-changingable, that can make it, you can turn it around, and if I can do it, then believe me, anyone can do it. And I'm only here to offer advice, support, and encouragement to anyone who suffers similar stuff. I have no problem about talking about anything like that.
Well, the two questions I'm going to kind of fire at you now, and this is what we do on this wonderful station here. Is your health okay now?
Yeah, I'm absolutely fit as a fiddle. I had a heart attack in 2011, quite major. But I mean, I was ready to have have a couple of sandwiches, a cheese sandwich when I got home from the hospital because I'd only had and it was only when my blood test came back. But I had actually had it in New York. I was flying back from New York and I had it.
Yeah.
Had a stent fitted within 48 hours down at St George's, and I've been absolutely right as rain ever since. And that is the attitude they have. And also, I know I've spoken to a lot of people who have suffered the same, more stents. They call it if you have a stent in all arteries, they call it a full metal jacket and stuff. And I think most of the battle now, because technically now they can deal with this stuff brilliantly. The advancements in technology regarding heart surgery, etc., are fantastic. It's the more mental thing. So people have a problem worrying that it's going to happen again. So I always give encouragement, because what I said to the doctors was, this summer I want to be on that beach. I want to be surfing with my kids. I want to be swimming with them. I want to be playing badminton, kicking the ball around. They said, not a problem. Do it. So I said, fine. And so I always encourage other people, because a lot of people think, if I do that, is it going to happen again? Well, if it happens again, it happens again. But, it shouldn't. And by not pushing the boundaries, you're not going to nothing's going to change, So I'm very much a peak of health. I've run 2 marathons before, so, I have a heart attack after 2 marathons. Who can tell? The only problem I said is our screening in this country could be a lot better to highlight that there might be a problem on its way. But apart from that, I'm as fit as a fiddle.
Well, I've got to say power to you. For talking about that, because it is important, of course, and people that know on this station that we do talk about lots of different things. And the other question, are you keeping your head above water now, sir?
What, financially?
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's always I think that no less or no more than a lot of people in this country who are struggling, and I tell you what, having gone through financial difficulties serves me to do. Is give a voice to those people, because when people say, well, people get on the dole, they get enough money, and they've gone bankrupt, and they why should we allocate money for struggling? But believe you me, it's not easy. So I'm here to give. I wrote a book called Debt Rescue, and really I did it. I highlighted, because I watched a program on male suicide, fathers who commit suicide, and 3 of the 6 cases they features as an ITV documentary was financial difficulties, bankruptcy, and I thought. So I wrote a book, and I outlined what happened to me, how it happened, but also my approach to it. And my approach was, this is not going to, I'm not going to be stigmatized by this. It can happen, to anyone. It's not done necessarily always on purpose, etc., etc. But keep positive. It cannot be life or death, because I wanted to give encouragement to people who may be struggling to talk to their wife, their partner, their close friends, or whatever, and it has to be out in the open, because we're losing too many people because they fear that bankruptcy and being in debt is a bad thing. Of course, it's not a comfortable thing, but it's not a bad thing. It doesn't make you a bad person, It makes you, that you might have risked something. So, and then shortly afterwards, the crash happened, and everyone was filing for bankruptcy. Yeah. And now the approach to it is a lot better, thankfully, but we were losing good people because of this thing called money, and I know it's difficult, but all these solutions can be helped by talking and getting advice and getting support, and thankfully I think the situation is better now. I'm a little bit wary now, what with this present government and their attitude and their, but I'm always here to give a voice to people like that. I have no problem with, letting people know what happened, because I'm there to be knocked down, and I'll stand, shoulder to shoulder with everyone else who's been through it too.
So in between all of this, young man, you are the luckiest man on the planet, because you married your beautiful wife, Wendy.
Oh, yeah, she's lucky too, Oh, no, sorry, no, oh my God, she just looked at me terribly. No, I am the luckiest man on the planet, you're right. Oh my God, she gave me daggers then.
And of course, those that don't know Wendy, of course, we're hoping on the station, thanks to Gary, that Wendy might pop on in a short while for a little bit of a chat about wonderful things that she does, and crafty beggars and that kind of thing.
Yeah, great.
But I have to say as well, this day and age, you've been married now, what, 18 years, is it?
Is it 18? Is it really 18 years, God? Oh, my God.
You, sir, will be leaving the house. You will be leaving the house.
I didn't realise it was that long. Yes, wonderful. 19 years, I think.
So, of course, all these things you've spoken about,
Yeah.
And to go through all of these things, of course, acting, of course, coming in and out, of course, the bankruptcy, the heart attack, and all these things.
Yeah.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Surely, for those people out there, does that not show true love with a couple to get all through that and come out the other side?
Yeah, well, I think we always discuss stuff, and, we have been through a lot. I mean, Wendy was struck with viral meningitis.
Yeah.
And that really knocked her out it was bad. For a week, when she was in the sort of intensive care and up in Stoke, that's life or death. That's very well. It took a good 18 months to go over. So, and she's had various forms of pneumonia and all that. So our life, we do explain to our children that it is certainly living what we do. It's never easy. It's never really normal. But the fact is, we do have stories to tell. So I think we always try and see the humour in stuff. We'll always still have a good laugh, even at our, when things are at their kind of most difficult. And I think that's the way you've got to do it. And you do find out about, who your friends are and how strong you are as a couple, and 20 years on or 18 years on or whatever it is, we're very lucky people. We're married. Our health is good now. We have 2 wonderful kids, As I say, people say, how do you feel? I wake up breathing. Every day I wake up breathing, I'm a happy man.
So, what do you want for the future, Gary Webster?
Oh, I want to get 6 numbers up tomorrow night. That's what I want.
It's not going to happen, though, is it?
No, I know. I'm going to have to work for me.
Sorry to burst your balloon, but it's just
I'm going to have to work for me lunch. What do I want? Well, I've got lots of stuff in the pipeline. I mean, obviously we haven't touched on it this evening, but I'm sure we will at another day. But I did try and get some films produced, which I'm now picking up on again. I've spent about 6 years in Africa, so I kind of left the acting game for about that length of time before I got back into it about 2 years ago. But, experiences, so I'm writing a book. We're reigniting the films again. I've got a renewable energy company that we're trying to do stuff in Africa. Now Wendy's looking at me and just giving the yawn to me, like she's heard this so many times. I think she wants to come on, Chris. Well, she's a performer herself. She's desperate to be on your radio show.
Well, we're gonna have her on shortly, so you can reassure her we will be putting
shortly.
Her on.
When she how long shortly?
Sure. Well, Gary, you're the star tonight, I'm afraid, so she's just going to have to wait.
Oh, my God. I won't tell
that. Listen, I've got to say this to you. I've always found you fascinating with your acting roles. Yes. And now, of course, you've come across this wonderful station, Second City Radio. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I love this station, Chris, as you well know. I'm a big fan. Getting bigger every day, and who knows? One would like to think we may have a closer association.
Well, I'm going to mention this now, and I'm going to mention this live. We did a poll earlier on in the week, and I was asking my peeps on the breakfast show how they would feel about a husband and wife team doing a Saturday morning show on this very channel.
Right.
Playing some great music, of course. I'm going to touch this with Wendy when we've played a few tracks. But talking about, animals, welfare.
Yeah.
Exactly what you've just spoken about there, which is, people going through bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And a kind of a Saturday morning feel-good show. Now, I'm going to say to you guys, because I'm always honest with you across the network, you've known me for 10 years, you've been through my life with me, guys out there. I've got to say to you, even though we haven't crossed the I's and dot the T's, Gary and Wendy will be very welcome to come and do a Saturday show here, of course, and go across the whole of the planet, of course, doing what they do best, of course. And I think it would be great for these two to come onto this station and be able to deliver kind of in their own styles what they're all about, of course, and for you as an audience. So I can reveal tonight that we are going to be in talks about bringing these guys to the station on a Saturday from their lovely home to your living room, talking about just everything, because we don't tell you what to do on your show, Gary. You just do it.
Well, we're very excited about the possibility of this, Chris, as you all know, and so I'm sure we can dot the I's and cross the T's.
We will. We
in
will.
The next few days.
We will.
And
we will.
We'll give Richard and Judy and Holly and Schofield a run for their money.
Well, you're in good company. Gary Bushell, Sam Kane, Mike Holloway, all here, of course, some fantastic...
All old friends and all great guys and girls.
Well, I wouldn't go that
women,
far. I wouldn't go that far, Gary.
Those these days.
I wouldn't go that far, Gary. I wouldn't go that
far.
No,
okay.
They're just all right. I know. Can I just say good evening to Sam Kane and Linda Lusardi, who I know will be listening right now. Good evening to both of you. And Gary, what we're going to do now is we're going to take... I'm going to kind of, in a very professional, beautiful way, I'm going to cut the call for about 10 minutes while we play a couple of tracks, and then we will bring on your lovely wife to talk about pet rescue, things that she's been involved with. We're going to talk about crafty beggars on the show. And by the way, guys that have been with me for 10 years, we've mentioned crafty beggars regular on this station, have we not? We have, because that's what we do. But I want to say to you, Gary, that I really hope, regardless of the radio side of things, I hope that somebody out there, of course, looks at the acting skills that you have, the warmth that you come across, the honesty, the decency of the person. And I'm pinching myself. I've actually got a blood clot now on my arm.
Don't you be joking about blood clots, Don't you be joking about that.
And I was going to tell you something else that I'm going to surprise you with. At the end of this show tonight at midnight, it's a long gig tonight, when we come off the air at 12 o'clock tonight, this show will be on catch-up replay via Alexa, Google Home, Smart TV, all day tomorrow, with no other show being broadcast until Sunday morning. Do you see, I'm the gift that keeps giving. I do hope
your listeners won't get too cheesed off. I really do.
I couldn't care less. Gary, absolutely fantastic. This is where you take a back seat.
Right. Do I put the phone down, by the way?
Not yet, because that kind of wouldn't work at this stage. But,
okay, fine. I'm new to the game.
What I normally say now is, Gary, would you stay on the phone for me?
Right, fine.
Can we just give Gary a virtual round of applause? There we
go. Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure to speak, Chris. I hope... Have
I done a decent interview? Are you all right with it?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I am.
Good. I'm glad.
Cool.
Gary Webster, of course, is on Twitter, if you would like to follow him, at Real Gary Webster. And, of course, very surprisingly, because I didn't know this was going to happen, but I'm much excited because I'm a fan of his wife as well. So you stay on the phone for me, Gary. We're going to be back after we're going to play Coldplay. We've got Fergal Sharkey on the way, and then Wendy Turner Webster will be live on this very show. Don't go anywhere.
Chris Phillips is live now into the weekend with Flashback Friday on the UK's #1 station, secondcityradio.net, and on the Second City Radio app for Android and iOS.